Restrictions are beginning to ease across the country, but many of the recreational facilities we've grown accustomed to remain closed, and some may stay that way. Municipalities across the country are suffering financially and have lost billions. As Abigail Bimman reports, pools, arenas, and city-managed golf courses could be the long-term victims.
Yeah, so this building is one of our primary community halls.
Planned upgrades and a new fire truck on hold in this Ontario town to make up for a COVID-19 shortfall.
We're a municipality, we can't run a deficit, so we have to ensure that we have a balanced budget.
The small municipality of 17,000 expects to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars this summer in facility rentals alone, and they've already seen property tax non-payments double, while bigger cities like Halifax are at the point of considering cutting essential services.
What's in the draft cuts right now is a $5 million cut to fire, and a $5 million cut to police, and that's just simply not sustainable.
The Federation of Canadian Municipalities says in total, cities need between $10 and $15 billion this year to get out of the COVID-19 hole. They're calling on the federal government to help.
It is dire. This is a crisis.
A big chunk of the lost revenue, transit.
I'm down 500 bus drivers right now because demand is lower, and I don't have a way to hire them back when we turn the economy back on, and we need more buses and more space on transit.
Edmonton has already cut 4,200 jobs with rec centers and libraries shut down.
We're at the point now where the next round of cuts we would have to make would be either to infrastructure and the jobs associated with them, or to essential services.
I think what worries us is everything rolls downhill.
Back in Kemptville, these business owners know municipal cuts mean more than just a loss in city services.
We are a center of the community where we're just as a big support in funding, as well as what we receive from people going to the pool. They stop by. If they don't do that anymore, we're no longer the draw for the downtown core.
The federal government says they're aware of the challenges facing municipalities and they're ready to help, but there have been no specific promises in response to that request for up to $15 billion. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.
The most deadly outbreaks of COVID-19 in Canada have been in long-term care homes, but there's a cautionary tale in Alberta about how the virus can spread through a community. Brooks in southern Alberta has one of the worst outbreaks in the country. It's a small city about 2 hours southeast of Calgary. In mid-March, Brooks had no cases at all. By mid-April, the virus suddenly seemed to be everywhere. Heather Yourex-West looks at why it spread so quickly.
For weeks, Miriam Funa's husband had been taking special precautions at work. Each day at the JBS meat packing plant, he wore a mask and a face shield and was careful to remove his clothes and decontaminate before coming home each night. Still, in early April, he became sick.
He felt the body pains, sore throat, and then fever during that night. And then after 3 days, I got my symptoms too.
Both tested positive for COVID-19.
At the height of the outbreak here, Brooks had more than 1,000 cases of COVID-19. For a community of less than 15,000 people, that meant that virtually everyone knew somebody that was sick.
It was after the Easter long weekend. We started to see some cases and the numbers started to go up.
Brooks recorded its first 3 cases on April 14th. By the 19th, 3 had become more than 100, and the numbers kept climbing. By the end of the month, nearly 1,000 people were infected.
We were having an increase of 100 or more per day. And we were also looking at High River and what happened at High River.
2 hours west of Brooks, the community of High River, Alberta, had been experiencing a similar outbreak. The two communities have a lot in common. Both are incredibly diverse, with large numbers of residents traveling to work at a nearby meat packing plant each day. Throughout the outbreak, the JBS plant outside Brooks never shut down, but it did cut the second shift and provided protective gear for workers on the floor. But this employee says on a noisy shop floor, the extra gear often got in the way of required tasks. And so, she says, safety protocols weren't always followed.
So you need to take off your face shield, and sometimes you need to take off your, to be heard.
Did that happen often?
Yeah.
Taking it off?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, yeah.
The company says all employees received safety training and that supervisors were on the floor to enforce the new rules. But health officials say the outbreak in Brooks didn't come from the JBS facility alone.
It's not just linked to the large meat plant in Brooks. It really truly was a community outbreak. And we had multitude of outbreaks in multiple locations.
There's a lot of Filipino people who got sick.
For Miriam Funa, it was a terrifying time. Her community was under siege. Carpooling to work and multiple generations and families living in one home made the situation that much more challenging. The steps that would be taken by everyone in the coming days would make or break a possible disaster. Heather, Yourex-West, Global News, Brooks, Alberta.
There's so much information surrounding coronavirus out there now. We know you have questions. Email your questions at globalnews.ca. Tune in to Global National or go to globalnews.ca/coronavirus now to find the answers.